All right, you guys, welcome to Midwest Paratalk Radio. I'm
You
Greg.
did it.
That's Deb. Well, I sort of did it. And this is our guest. Now, do you prefer Lucy, Lucinda? What do you prefer?
I call myself Lucinda. Everyone else calls me
Okay.
Lucy, so you can do whatever you
Okay.
want.
I did not know
Just
that.
don't call me
I'm
late for
so-
dinner.
Just don't call me late for dinner.
Yes, that's exactly right.
Yeah.
Right.
Call me on time for
So-
cake.
All right, you guys, welcome to Midwest Paratalk Radio. You're catching us live on YouTube. If you're out there, please subscribe, hit the bell notification, all that good jazz, because that's how you got to say it for them to do that. And because, people won't know. I don't know. So tonight, Deb, I'll let you do the introduction intros, and we'll get rocking and rolling.
Well, this is my friend Lucinda. I'm one of the ones who've been calling her Lucy ever since.
You can call me Lucy. You call me
Damn,
Lucy, so
Deb.
you have to say Lucy. That's
Well,
it. It's weird to hear you say Lucinda.
Yeah. Anyways, and Morel, like the mushroom, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I always knew that. Anyway, this is my friend Lucy Morel. I met her through Zero. Don't ask me what Zero means right now. Somebody asked me the other day and I had a brain fart because I know it changed.
Close Encounter Resource Organization.
There you go. That's the new one.
Yeah.
Okay. And Lucy is one of the smartest people I know. And that's why I asked her to come on our show. I've learned so much from her, especially in the last year, but really, especially in the last few months with all the UAP stuff that's happening. I met Lucy through the UFO part of the paranormal world. So I don't even know where to start with questions. The first thing I want to go to is that soul, I guess.
Wait. Before you jump into that,
you do. You go on.
Have you told her about the pictures that I had sent you? By chance?
No.
The ones I sent you on Messenger a couple nights ago. The
no,
UFO.
yeah, no. Actually, I didn't. No, I did not. I didn't.
Okay, now here's a cool story.
Okay.
So with my group, Boonville, Indiana Paranormal Society, of course, we're ghost hunters, and we had a meeting. So coming home from their house, I saw what looked to be what I would assume was a small meteor that broke the atmosphere, but it came straight down into the woods in front of the road that I was on. I didn't hear an impact. I didn't see anything light up like there was a fire.
Mm-hmm.
I thought, okay, that was weird. All right, that was cool. I mean, and it was bright. I mean, so super bright white light. I thought that was pretty interesting. And I've seen anomalies before, so it's not like, it was a freak out moment, but it was just like, wow, okay, sure. So on my way home, I pull into my driveway, and I live pretty far out in the country.
Mm-hmm.
And above my house, probably, I don't know, 300 feet behind my house to the east, there was an object above the cornfield. It was, for better, I mean, Deb, was it disc shaped, do you think?
It kind of looked like it, yeah. It didn't.
There
wasn't a ball to me.
Right.
I mean, it looked like a UFO. With the little lump in the middle and then the outside lit up.
Yeah.
Right, but there was a
wild.
bright center ball in the center of it. And I thought, well, maybe it was an airplane and it was going from east to west coming towards me. But the flight pattern of this object was going north and south with the bright ball in the middle. There was no audible noise whatsoever. Like, I mean, if an airplane was that close, I would hear the engines of the airplane, or I would hear the warble if it was a helicopter. But I thought that was kind of strange. That's the closest close up that I have seen in my life. And like I said, I've seen some anomalies but that was like, wow, okay. And I actually was able to snap a couple of pictures of it. But
So
yeah,
he's finally learned. He's learning that once you hang around with folks like us, then stuff starts happening to you.
Stuff will start happening.
Mhm.
You're going to start off with, huh, that's weird. All the time, every single time. It starts
Mhm.
off
right.
with like just this like, huh. Like where you just kind of take a minute and then you're like, and then you'll do the thing where you'll run through a million points of vetting, right? Okay, no sound. Where's this? Is it's over the cornfield. Are they move? Are the fields kind of moving? Like, where's the wind coming
Right.
from? Where's the sway? Where are the trees? And I was like, you'll start doing all that stuff in your head, and
Yep.
then you'll end up with nothing.
Mhm.
Yes.
And then you just go, huh. Like, that's when you just put your hands up like, yeah,
Mhm.
UFO. That's
Right.
it. And
Right.
and
Yeah.
then you go in, and then you go in and you go to bed and you have wild dreams.
How
See,
old? Well, go ahead. Sorry.
that I'd never had the dreams that were to follow or anything like that. I mean, and
When
it wasn't really taken aback. It was just like, huh? Like you said, it's like, huh? Okay.
Yeah.
You
How
know.
long ago was this?
Um, what, Deb,
I
3
don't.
weeks ago,
I don't know.
I
Yeah,
think.
something like that. You gave me the dates. I gave it. I think it was November 4th or something like that.
Yeah.
I contacted the guy here that has the Madar unit. That I have a
Mhm.
Madar unit, but he can look and see if there was a unit around Greg's area, because he's down south further than me, that where
Okay.
the unit went off. So because in case something
Mm.
triggered the unit, but I haven't heard back from him, so I'm going to assume that
Mm.
means there wasn't anything there. But yeah, Greg getting his mind blown. You really didn't. He didn't do much UFO stuff before he met me, did you?
At all. Not at all.
No, no. So, and now I want to ask you, Lucy. Um, I know you worked in the aerospace industry for a long time. I know that um, and then you have this other side, this shaman, and the shaman side, the the
The healer stuff.
mediumships, and
Yeah.
stuff like that. Um, but I've never really heard you talk too much about when you were young, and if what kind of UFO experience that you had.
Um, okay, so it's all like don't you feel now as okay, so my 50th birthday party is Saturday. So I'm turning 50 in
And happy
December.
birthday, happy big
Thank you.
50, your
Yeah,
25th anniversary of your 25th year. That's what I always
that's
used to
right.
say.
That's right. So, but it has me like thinking of like, oh, this is great. Like I'm very excited about 50. I don't know why people think it's a bad thing. Like, first of all, I've outlived a
Yeah.
lot of people I know. So
Well,
like
hell, 50
already,
is the new 40 anyways.
yeah, no, I love 50. And I get to be reflective in all like the best ways, right? And
Mm-hmm.
I've been thinking about this a lot because I realize like so much of like from childhood to now has kind of led me to this space. Like I just feel like everything was so orchestrated, especially in terms of like the contact and all that kind of stuff. It was like it was all put there for me to have these moments, just
Mm-hmm.
to be here now. Um, so starting with young childhood, I always had I grew up in this like 50s suburban ranch house with the big backyard, and ends at the neighbors the other side of the block's backyard, regular just 50s track home, right? um and I always used to go out and play with what everyone called my imaginary friends in the
Mm-hmm.
back of the backyard, like way far from everything,
Way
like
back in the backyard.
way in the back of the backyard, like by the back wall kind of thing. And that's
Mm-hmm.
always where they would never
Mhm.
come toward the house. They were always toward that back wall. Um, interestingly enough, there's two big telephone poles that would, up on either side, right? And there was always like the big telephone wire, and there was always a huge owl that would perch there. And
Owls.
there's always an owl. You can go out and just look at it and talk to whatever, but for me, it was very real. To everyone else, it was they were imaginary friends. And so instead of being the kid that was like, oh, I guess they are imaginary friends, and then like letting it go, my mentality was, well, you don't see it, that's your problem. They're still going to be my friends, right?
Right.
And I think that's kind of why it didn't leave me, because I didn't let it, I was just like, oh, that's your problem, right? Like as the feisty little girl would. So then growing up, we always have, I should say, like, my dad's a big movie nerd, right? And so I grew up in the 70s and the 80s, and my dad wanted to see a movie, and my mom worked third shift. And so my dad took my brother and I, my brother's 3 years older. So we saw everything and anything my dad wanted to see. So like we saw, everything from like Star Wars and Alien to all those like 70s Karen Black horror films.
Did you guys
like,
see the Planet of the Apes movies and the John Wayne movies?
Of course, like
all that
everything and anything. So so we, I was like raised in a movie theater. So I always thought, I guess, talk about recall. So I didn't notice this until I had my kids. But what would happen is, if I went to a movie and my brother didn't get to go, when we got home, my brother would be like, so what was the movie? And I would recall the movie from the beginning of the film all the way through until like every point of the film. And he would do the same for me. And now, like, if I have my kids do that, like, they can't tell the movie. And I'm like, what do you mean? And and I realized, okay, so I slowly, for some reason, had a very good recall, and so did my brother. And we trained ourselves in that recall. So that was number 2, right?
Nice.
And then 3, we grew up in a big family, and my dad had grown up in a haunted house. And so
fun times.
My aunt used to see fairies.
Cool.
And so at grandma's house, my dad is the oldest of 8. So grandma's house was like the big family parties. Everyone had their own family with a bunch of kids. And so there was just, every holiday was this madhouse that included, grandma's house, a lot of food, poker, and ghost stories.
It sounds so much like mine. My mom and dad's place, when all of us kids grew up and moved out and had our own kids, every Friday or Saturday night, it started out with poker, and we played for money, and these people were ruthless, trust me.
Oh yeah, me too.
They switched, and then eventually they switched over to Yahtzee. But by God, they played Yahtzee for money too. They got bored with poker after a while. But I mean, we were a big loud bunch.
Yeah,
and
same here. Same here.
It sounds very familiar.
And so, but like when you grow up like that, like nothing is off the table. And you could say whatever weird thing you wanted to. Like, it was never, we were never like shamed or anything. Like, if there was something weird. And the funny thing is, if you had something weird happen to you, well, like my aunt with the fairies, right? So when they moved from Phoenix to Los Angeles, they moved to the San Fernando Valley, which was all walnut groves. And my grandfather used to go work in the walnut groves, and he would take my aunt, who was like 4, and she used to see fairies in the walnut groves. And she was like, again, feisty little girl, like, I see you, like, come out of there. Like, she would see them like duck and hide. And there was like one time, I guess, when they gave her a caramel, like there was a hollowed out, there was a stump, and it had flowers growing around it. And one day she said they would give her caramels. They liked to play with her. And my grandfather noticed it, and he was like, what do you have in your mouth? Right. And she was like, oh, I have a candy from the fairy or whatever, and he was just like,
like, spit that out.
He told her spit it out. Like, don't take what they give you, like that kind of thing, which is why I've always wondered if he was maybe the first generation of all this, right? Because he was just like, don't spit that out. And yes, it could be like, what stranger's giving my kid candy? But the other thing is it was kind of a don't take what they give you kind of thing, which is very fairy lore, right? And he was closer to our kind of indigenous, like Native American blood there. So I think that's kind of where that started. But like my aunt would always, like at the parties, would be like, "What? You saw fairies?" And she'd be like, "Yes, I saw the fairies." Do you know what I mean?
Exactly. My sister would say, "Oh, you saw it." We'd say, "You saw a UFO in the church?" "Yes, I did. I saw it. It picked my car up." I mean, yeah. And so when you grow up around that, it seems normal.
And you know right away what you saw and how to defend it. And you're just like, I don't care what you think. Right. Exactly. Which is like a huge gift, right? Because we were never taught like, oh, I have to worry about what other people think of me or anything like that. And we're just like that generation. We're just like, I don't give a shit what you think of me. I know what I saw. Like, and it helps you retain the story and the knowledge and everything that happened. So growing up, like in my teens and 20s and stuff, there was always like I would always have intuitive voices talk to me, one male voice in particular. And I just assumed that it was because I'm a big film nerd and, well, I must have a talent for character development. That's literally what I thought. Like, okay, like I build these great characters in my head because they're talking to me and look at how cool that is. And, if I wasn't so lazy, I would write that down and like, make that into a story or something. But that never happened. And just life went on. I remember being in high school, getting ready to go to college. Like I wanted to go to the regular public school and be a punk rock kid. And my mother was like, nope. Ever since I've been taking you to kindergarten, across the street, there was this private all girls Catholic, college prep, high school. And she was like, I always dreamed you would go there. So she like forced me to go. And I was like, okay. And quickly learned that like, oh, the people here take education seriously. So I better do that too. Cause it wasn't like, are you going to college? It was like, where are you going and what are you going to study and stuff like that. So I was this kid that was skimming by, not knowing that I was actually getting a really good education. And then finally everyone was like getting accepted to Yale and Harvard and Columbia, and everyone was going to really good schools. And I was like, oh crap. I thought we were all just out all night having fun and partying. And they were like, we were. And then we wouldn't sleep because we would go home and study. I was like, oh, I slept. Like, it was,
oops, my bad.
It was literally that, like, come on, man, y'all left me in the dust. So I had to get my butt in gear very quickly. And during that stressful time when everybody was like, oh, what do you do? And what do you, I didn't know what I wanted to do. And I remember very clearly that same male voice saying, well, don't worry about it right now. Just go and do what you can. Things don't really get started until you have your kids. And I was like, and I remember having this thought and hearing this voice and thinking, what makes you think I'm going to have kids? I don't know if I want to have kids. Like, I just assumed I would be like the very cool aunt. Like, what do you mean? It was never like a dream of mine or anything like that. So now fast forward, I'm 38 years old. I have, I'm no longer Holly Golightly living for 10 years in Echo Park, near downtown LA as a single girl having fun. Now I'm 38 and I'm married and I have a 2-year-old and a 4-year-old. And apparently I'm working from home and I'm grouchy. And my husband's like, okay, go do something because you're kind of grouchy. Go leave the house for a while because you're cooped up too much. It's like, yeah, all right, good call. And I remember I got in my car and I was like, I don't know what do I do? Because so quickly I had turned from this person to this person. And they tell you, I don't know, I guess society kind of says, oh, it's great. You're married, you can have kids, and you live in your little suburban house and 2 kids and da da da. But no one really tells you, like, once you get it, what happens. And
Mhm.
maybe that was just something I never picked up on. So then I had my little midlife meltdown because I was like, how am I going to be a good wife and a good mother if I don't know who I am? And I decided, like, told my husband, like, that's it. I'm gonna go on a road trip by myself. I went to a women's retreat in Sedona, and then things
Nice.
got weird. So things got weird quickly in one weekend.
Mhm.
The first day, like, okay, first of all, I had never been to Sedona. I was just like, I've always wanted to go. Okay,
Mhm.
let's check out this pretty place, whatever. And I found a women's retreat, and the lady that runs it, her name is Catherine Lash. I stayed like at her house. She was renting out her house. I rented out her master bedroom. So like I have a place to stay. I'm with this woman. It's a women's retreat. It's safe, blah, blah, blah. Um, I get there and you just get your schedule, and your schedule's just like, okay, be here on this day at this time. Okay. And then it's a lot of like meditation and doing all this kind of self work and why we here and all this kind of stuff. And one of the exercises was you had to bring a rock, and then you had to channel a lot of like kind of your negative stuff into this rock. And then they drove us out to like where the vortexes are, vortices, whatever. You go off hiking, and you're going to do your own private like releasing ceremony with this rock. And I was like, okay, sounds good on paper. And then of course I have this grand cinematic vision that I am going to climb up to a cliff, and I'm going to throw my rock off the cliff, and it's going to be like Thelma and Louise, right? And it's going to be grand, and I'm going to have this, and I'm going to feel great after. And what I ended up doing is I climbed up this thing, and I found this big, like a creosote bush, and I just crawled under it or something. There was just this big bush, and I noticed it was almost like a little dome, like a little nest, like a little igloo kind of thing. And
Mhm.
I climbed in it, and it was hollow on the inside, that it made this
Cool.
little perfect little cage for me. And I was sitting, crisscross applesauce, as the kids say, and
Mm.
began to like have my total breakdown. And I was just like, I don't like, what is this? Like, why am I here? Like, I feel like I've always been just kind of like floating, floating like a feather, in the
Mhm.
wind. Like, okay, I guess we're doing this. I guess we're like, that's how I ended up in my career. That's how I ended up with like, just like a lot of things that happened to me is just me going, all right, and, and I said, like, really, I got really angry, and I challenged the universe. And I said, I'm tired of being afraid. Just give me what you got. Just give me what you got.
Yeah.
And I heard a voice under on the dirt, underground, under me. And it was a woman's voice, which was kind of different because I'm used to hearing this guy's voice all the time, right? This male voice, but this was clearly a woman's voice. And she says, give it to me. And I have the rock in my hand, and I'm like, but this rock is full of my problems, and it's so full of like, I'm just like, listen, Gaia, the earth is troubled as it is, man. Really, you don't need my rock. Like, I feel like stupid and, oh, here's my problems too, on top of
Yeah.
everything. And I was like, I don't want to give you my, and she said again, I heard very clearly, she goes, give it to me, just like that. And I said, you know, I was hesitant. And she said, she actually kind of laughed when I was like, oh, but my problems. She's just like, I could hear like a chuckle. She goes, give it to me. I can turn it into something good. And I said, okay. And so kind of like without thinking, like my hands were in my sweatshirt pocket, and I kind of like I did that. I'm doing this on camera so you can see. So with two fingers like on the floor, like I wasn't even thinking. I was just like two fingers. I went to dig a hole in the dirt, and it went like dunk. Like it got. I'm gonna do this way. It went boom. It got stuck, and she said a gift. And so I dug it, and it was another rock, the same size as my rock. And I was like, oh, like, cool. I wasn't even looking. I threw it in my pocket. Just looked like a dirty brown rock, right? And I didn't put it in my pocket. And then I finished my little ceremony or whatever, and I hike down, and I'm with the other women in the retreat. There's like 3 other women, and we're in the car going back, and I'm like, who smells good? And they're like, that's you. Like one of them's like, I do not smell good. I've been hiking for 2 hours. Like, what are you talking about? And they're like, we're all sweaty. Like, what are you talking about? And I was like, but doesn't somebody smell good? And I'm doing this, like, doesn't somebody smell good? And they're like, oh, that's you. And it smelled like like an incense. So I was like, well, what? And I put my hand in my pocket, and I pulled out, and I guess like, because my palms were sweaty because we're hiking. Um, and I cleaned the rock, and it was this huge ball of copal resin. And so it was like this big amber ball
Oh,
of
nice.
copal, which is copal resin, and it's used in the Native American like purification ceremonies.
Mm-hmm.
And
Nice.
so she gave me a purification rock, right?
Wow.
So the next day, I took it back to my room, and I was just looking at it, writing in my journal, like, wow, that's so cool. But, the next day, they say, okay, be at so-and-so place at 9:00 in the morning, put on sunscreen, bring your water bottle. We're going to go for a hike. Right. Okay. So, you show up at the place, and then they drive you to wherever the hiking trail is, whatever. So we're on this hike, and like, when you're hiking and you get in your zone, and you're just kind of like, da, 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 right?
Mhm.
Because, and you're kind of thinking like, because me, not too much of a hiker, I'm just like, how far is this going to be? And like, you're doing all that stuff, and like,
Yep.
can I do this? And I'm in
Right.
my zone, and I can kind of to my right, walking next to me is an imaginary friend, right? Which I see all the time. And she's like 17. She's really thin. She has long brown hair. She's wearing like a buckskin dress with a little bit of pretty beadwork, simple, nice. And she's just looking at me as we're walking, but like with full shade, like a teenage girl that hates her mom, like that kind of thing. Like she's just like full, like just got like, God, like you disgust me. Like
Side
she's
eye.
yeah, like side eye. And then she starts saying things, and she's just like, you don't even remember. Like, look at you. We just get attitude. And I'm just like, what the hell is going on in my mind right now? And she goes, do you remember? And I remember just looking, and then like I passed by a bush, and she goes, do you remember what that does? She goes, you clean it, and you pick it, you clean it, she like did this gesture like a mortar and pestle.
Yeah.
And she says, you grind it after you boil it, takes away your headache, and what about? She's like, do you even know what that is? And she starts telling me like medicinal properties of different plants, and I'm like, oh, okay. And then the guy leading the hike, which was the owner's partner at the time, he's talking, and he says, yeah, I do a lot of anthropological work with the Hopi and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, oh, so this plant, if you boil it and I said, you boil it, it takes away your headache. And he was like, yes, actually it does. And blah, blah, blah. And I was like, oh, dang. Yeah. Okay. Like I'm looking at the side eye to this girl. I'm like, oh, you're
So
right here.
yeah.
And I was like, how about this? Does it do this? And then you're like, yeah. And then she's like, did you bring the copal? Because we're going to go up to this altar. And when you get up there, you're going to break off a little piece, and you're going to say this, and you're going to do this. She's telling me all this stuff. So I was just like, what? And then, so I'm talking to the owner guy now as we're hiking. I'm like, are we going to an altar? And he's like, yes. So you've been here before? We're going to so-and-so art. I don't even know what this place is. I've never been there. And I'm like, and he's like, yeah, so you've been here before? That's kind of rare, because usually tourists don't come up here to this part of the area, whatever. And I was just like, and I put my head down, and I was like, this is where I go crazy. Like, I was like, oh, that's it for me. Like, this is crazy town now. Like, oh, okay.
I think it's cool.
Here's where I am totally losing my mind.
Mhm.
And so after that day, we come back to the office, whatever, and I see I see the owner and I'm like, Kat, I need a reading. That's what I said. That's all. And she goes, say no more. I'll send someone to the house. Right. Cause that's her job. She already
Right.
knows. And it's Sedona. And like, and her gift is that she always pairs you with the right thing you need for whatever the thing is. Like that's her,
Mhm.
that's why it's her business. Right. So, I'm thinking someone's going to come and they're going to like read tarot cards or something. I don't know. I'm reading. But this woman shows up at the door and her name is Terra Sonora Angel Channeler. And I'm like, and I'm just
like, what the hell?
yeah, I'm like, oh, this is real Sedona now. Like I was like,
Right.
okay, this is gonna be fun. Like this is some Sedona realness, Angel Channeler. And to be totally honest, I was just kind of like, okay, this is not what I thought it was going to be, but okay, I'll just like go with it, right?
Right.
And she sits down and then she says, okay, well, do I have your permission to, to read your soul? And I'm just like, sure. Like, like it's like, hand me, can I have a sip of your water? Sure. And she proceeds to just like read me like someone that knows me very intimately. And I'm like,
Cool.
okay. And the thing is she's a channeler, right? And so what happens is like she's in front of you, but like she starts going into like totally different personalities and personas, and her voice changes and does all this weird stuff. And I'm just like,
wow.
Yeah, I was just like, oh, this is too much. And all the stuff was like, oh, so, everyone's very excited. You are fast tracking now. Like you're on it now. And I'm like, on what? They're like, now you're on the path. They were like, and she says like, yeah, like it's just been waiting and everything's been leading up to this, but like now you start. And I'm like, okay. And so then she's like, oh, everyone's very excited on the other side. I'm like, okay. And in the end, so it comes to like, do you have any questions? Like it's ending and do you have any questions? And I'm like, yeah. I said, who's the voice? And she goes, oh, she, waits a moment, take a pause, does her thing, blah, blah, blah. She goes, oh, okay. She says, this is a fifth dimensional being of light. I still don't know what that means. But she says, you two have been in many incarnations together. You have been husband, wife, brother, sister, father, daughter, mother, son, like many, many, many lifetimes. And she goes, it's sad kind of that you've been in so many lifetimes and he's not in this lifetime. And I said, he gets me out of a lot of trouble. And they said, yeah, that would make sense. There's been a lot of situations where, like I tell one, like I had a good friend in college and we worked together at the same job. And one day he didn't show up for work. And I was asked, before you come into work, can you just go check on him? Because he had epilepsy and they were worried. And so I went to the dorms and like I was knocking, I knew he was in there. And then I thought, I'm going to go jump the gate and go into a sliding glass door. The little dorms always had that little terrace thing. I was like, I'm going to go in a sliding glass door and check this out. And I was about to like turn to do it. And that voice, that same male voice very clearly said, do you really want to see it? Like that, like angry. And I was like, oh, and I knew he was dead. And I knew he was in there. I knew he was dead. And so I went back to work and I was like, no, he didn't answer. He's not there. And it turned out that's where he was. It wasn't for me to find him. It was for my brother, his brother found him. But like that's the level of things that this voice has always said, some being young and single. So, I would go to a bar, in my neighborhood. And like, I remember one time he was like, nope, turn around, leave now. Don't go that way. Turn here, go out. Nope, leave. And I just literally like walked in, did a loop and like walked out. That was it. Right. So that kind of stuff. So she tells me that this voice is a fifth dimensional being of light. And I say, what's his name? And she tells me the name of my childhood imaginary friend in that backyard that I made up. It's not a real name. It's a made up name
Yeah.
that child me made up. And so I was like,
What?
Floored. Yeah.
holy shit, I think this is real. And then she's like, she said, you know, you're a medium, right? And I said, no, I'm not a medium. I have a good knack for storytelling and character development. She goes,
you're a medium.
she goes, oh, honey. She goes, and you're clairaudient. She goes, people like me would give their right arm for that. Come on. And I was
Because
like,
you hear it. Yeah.
yeah. And she was, and she's like, I get, yeah, that's what it is. And she goes, do you ever like pass along the messages? And I'm like, no. So just talk to people and they talk to me. And then like, that's it. So she's like, yeah, you should start thinking about doing that. I'm like, okay. And it's so funny because I closed the door, and like as soon as I closed the door, I went into the room and I called my aunt, and she's like, hey, hey, Miha, what are you doing? I said, I'm in Sedona. What are you doing in Sedona? Hey, hold on, listen, let me just try something. I said, Grandpa Henry wants you to stop. And he says it like this, stop, I'm fine, it's okay. And she was like, and she goes, why would you say that to me? And I said, trying something out. I said, honestly, I've never met my Grandpa Henry. He died before I was born. Right. Mm-hmm. But like I talk to Grandpa Henry all the time. Like I talk to my grandmother, who is also long past. Like I've always just had conversations with Grandpa Henry. And she says, I found a box of my daddy's letters 3 days ago, and I've been sitting on my couch crying for 3 days because I wasn't there when my daddy died. And I said, oh, so he's saying he's fine and he's okay, and stop. Like that, like stop already. Yeah, like stop it, I'm fine, like that kind of thing.
Right.
And then she goes, wow, thank you. Because she goes, so you have the gift. She goes, yeah, I can do that too.
Oh my God.
Are you kidding? Like what? How come?
Why do you people tell me this stuff?
Yeah. And the funny thing is, because we're that open family that does, that like, it's not something that we wouldn't talk about. It's just like, she's just like, oh yeah, I can do that too. It's like,
right.
Oh
that's wild.
And then that's when that stuff started. So that was, after that, I came home, miraculously got pregnant with child number 3. No one knows how that happened. Post-vasectomy child. Went to the urologist. He asked me if I had sex with another man, in front of my husband. I said no.
Oh shit.
In that urologist office was one photograph on the wall. It was like all the walls were white, one photograph, and it was Red Rock River crossing in Sedona, where I did my journal writing. And I was like, so here's the thing. I challenged the universe and said, give me what you got. And it gave me a kid.
It gave you another kid.
And so at that point, I was just, pregnant and hormonal and ragey. And I was just like, okay, throw down anybody. I will take a paternity test for anybody. But if I win, then someone's buying me a minivan because I can't fit 3 car seats in my car. Like, so you can judge me all you want, but you're not allowed to say anything unless, like, put your money where your mouth is. That did not happen. Everyone just shut up after that. And I ended up with a minivan that I still have right now.
That's funny.
All these years later. So from there, like, what do you do? Right. And so that's when I was like, coming from like corporate America, I'm like, well, what is the ethical practice? I don't want to be the lady that just stops people on the street and is just like, your grandma says, like your boyfriend. Yeah. Like I don't want to be that, right?
That one on TV. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I was like, how does one do this? And so I found a teacher who like handpicks her students and went through a 2-year program, which I lovingly refer to as psychic school. Some people call it Hogwarts. So I went to psychic school for 2 years, and that was fantastic.
I would love to do that sometime. I
So
have never heard of psychic school.
Psychic school is so fantastic. I interviewed and I was like, I'm a medium, apparently. And she was like, you will use no mediumship in my class. And I was like, oh, so then are we, so like we're done? And she was like, oh no, I'm going to take you and I'm going to teach you, but you're going to use no mediumship in my class. And I was like, well, I can't do anything else. She's like, you'll be fine. Like, and it was fantastic. So I can tell you this now, because I have a lot of now with all these years under my belt, right? When you do a mediumship reading, everybody wants a mediumship reading because people want to connect with their loved ones and stuff like that. But for me, like I do healings, right? Like I'm working, my intention is always healing. And so the concept is that there's the higher self, right? So the higher self is that aspect of you that knows why you're here, what you came here to do. It knows everything about you. It knows all your past lives. It knows everything. And so the reason why she doesn't use mediumship and she taught us is that my job is for my higher self to connect with your higher self to figure out what you need. Right. Okay.
Yeah.
And what happens is mediumship will come in. So I'll still do the readings and usually, or maybe it depends, like a relative is going to pop in there and they're not always as evolved as you think they would be. And so you still get opinions and guidance from from somebody who loves you and wants the best for you. But just because you're on the other side doesn't mean you've evolved so much. I'm gonna say that. It doesn't mean you're gonna get wisdom. And like say you're in a relationship and your loved one knows it's not the best relationship you can be in. If I said to you, your loved one doesn't think this is the best relationship you should be in, and then you break up with that person, that's contrary to your higher self. Because your higher self is going to say, he or she hasn't learned the lesson of this relationship. Yes, it's a bad relationship, but not until that person understands how and why. We're just going to keep finding the same bad person to be in a relationship. It's just going to cycle, right? And so that's kind of like the concept and the wisdom behind that. That's why we go that route. So the other thing about psychic school was that I just wild stories. So the way it works is like it's a weekend. Okay, so you're doing it like every weekend for I don't know. It was 2 years, so I think it was like one weekend a month for 2 years or something. Okay, Saturday you're doing a long ass meditation, and then you're learning whatever the skill is. It'll be a modality, so a type of reading. There's chakra readings. There's different, like something called a rose reading. There's aura readings, all these kind of like a different type of modality. And then the next day you're doing your meditation again. And then you're breaking up into different rooms. So there's like 3 people in one room. So think of it this way. Think of a little room, 3 folding chairs. And then the 3 readers are sitting in a folding chair and our eyes are closed and our hands are on our laps. And we're just sitting there in our little meditative pose. And there's one chair across from us. And as you're sitting there, with your eyes closed, the door opens, someone comes in and they sit in front of you, and then go. So person number one says, and we use the modality, say it's a chakra reading. Okay, so we already know we're our eyes are closed, but we see you and we see your aura or your chakras, and we're telling you, we're giving you a reading based on what we see and what, like what everything means. First person goes, second person goes, third person goes, person gets up and leaves. So there's no yes, no question. There's no like leading the witness. You're not fishing for anything. There's nothing. You get in there, you say what you got. The person getting the reading will tell your instructor what he or she thought of you. But even your instructor's not going to tell you. So she's gonna come in and she's gonna say, it was great. Or she's gonna say, don't do this, or that was fine. But it's good because people keep wanting to do it, right? So you know something is good about it, but you don't know what is. And it teaches you how to trust your instinct, right?
Exactly.
And that's kind of like year one. Year two, it gets fun. Year two is things like, okay, so here's the one here's the one I mentioned at Soul. I told somebody at Soul this. In our advanced course, one day, one of the weekends, she was like, okay, go find an ET. And we were like, sorry, what? And she was like, okay. And she was like, okay, so here's what you're going to do. Because by that advanced class, you're learning like Akashic records and how to leave your body, like how to properly astral project, what to do, how to get everything, how to clear the rooms, how to make sure you know what's in the room, like that kind of stuff. So she's like, okay, so here's what we're gonna do. You're gonna leave your body. You remember how to do all the protocols. Yes. She's like, you're gonna leave, and you're gonna go find an ET. Call one to you, or go to where it is, engage with it, come right back. Detach, come right back. No hitchhikers, whatever. So like, all right, I'm just like, okay, whatever. This is happening for me. This is happening in Santa Monica, California. Okay. So I leave my body, I leave the building, I go up on top, I'm in the sky. And for some reason I just go whoop and I turn this way. And this way is Catalina Island. And I see Catalina, I see Catalina Island.
I know that place.
I see Catalina Island, and just to the right of Catalina Island, there's this big orange, yellow sphere that's just like an orb. It's an orb, right? Golden, orange, red, like yellow. It's like the sun sphere, and it's just like doing this thing. And I'm just like, okay, guys, I know nothing about this stuff at this point, right? Like I'm not in my UFO ET phase at this point. I'm just in psychic school. And I'm like, and I'm just like, I'm looking at it and I go, hello, just like that. I went, hello. And then like right back, it said a greeting, just like that, like flat, like I said, hello. And it said a greeting. And then it went, and it plopped into the ocean, and it went into the Pacific Ocean. And I was like, did it translate my hello, or did it say hello back to me, or like what the hell was that? I was just like what? Because it's a greeting. It's like, is that you talking to me?
It's like it translated what you said to it. Oh, this is a greeting.
Because for some reason, like the minute I saw it, I was like, oh shit, it sees me. Like it's like, okay, there's this weird ball in the sky, but it's alive and it knows I'm looking at it. And that's why I was like, hello. And it said a greeting. And so I was like, am I reading its mind, or like what is happening right now? And so it's over. I'm back in the room, back in my body, whatever. Okay, we go like one by one, in the class. And everyone is like, oh, I went to the Pleiades and I saw Pleiadian people and they were so like, and then like the next person's like, I went to Venus and I saw the Venusians and what was it? And I was just, and then
You're like,
one was like, I saw gray. And then the other one was like, I was in the moon and both. And I was just like, I was so like,
I saw an orange
and-
ball at
and
Catalina
then, like,
Island. Woo!
yeah, she got to me. Like another person was just like, I got nothing. Right. Like, you know, it was real. Right.
Yeah.
And she turned to me and I was like, I'm pretty sure I did it wrong because I, you know, did it and I told the story. And then she held my gaze for like just a second too long. Like she was just like, next. Like she went to the next person like right away, you know, like, you know, just okay. Da, 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 da. And so I was like, like what if something to that, right? That was one. The next kind of like crazy. How much time do we have? Okay, let me see what I want to say. Okay,
As much time as you need.
Yep.
here's
Greg owns the stage.
okay. The other weird one was that okay, you start learning. You know how we're still doing the 3 chairs, right? And the 1 chair in front of us, and we're still doing the readings all the, you know, every time, every session. At one point, she tells us, okay, have you noticed that this is my teacher saying, have you noticed that when you guys do these readings, I come in the room and I kind of come out and I stay quiet, but I'm kind of going into the different rooms where the different classes are happening. And we're like, yeah. And she just said, that's because I'm clearing the room. And we're like, okay. She said, you know, when you're in that state, she said, kind of like what Whitley says too. She goes, you're kind of a beacon. You become this light, you know, when you're in this state.
Mhm.
And she goes, things are just attracted to that light. You know, things want to
Yeah.
know what that light is. And so she says, what I'm doing is I'm clearing them out of the room because you guys are attracting a lot of things. So she goes, imagine there's 3 of you doing that. And what gets called into the room? So I'm clearing the room, making sure it's okay. And so she said, so now you will clear the room, right? And I'm
Oh.
still kind of like, so now I get stuck being the room cleaner because most people
Oh,
want to
no.
do the readings, you know, most people want to do
Mhm.
the readings. And I'm like, oh, I get kind of stuck being the room cleaner. Okay, I'll take one for the team. And how it works is that I'm standing by the door. So I'm allowed to stand by the door with my eyes open. And then the 3 readers are still have their eyes closed and they're getting ready to do their thing. And then the person in the chair is here. So the person in the chair hasn't come in yet. And I'm standing there. And the way it works is like, here's the door. And then, you know, to the left is going to be the single chair. And to the right is going to be the 3 seaters. And then across from me is a window. And then on that window is a big kind of stand-up plant, a big planter in a pot.
Mhm.
And so I'm standing there watching the room. And from the plant on the corner, this little, very small, white, stringy thing that like moves is just like moving across the room. And like, you know how when there's a piece of lint on a film reel and you see that little
Mhm.
squiggly of the film lint? Okay.
Yep.
Or like, okay, it looks like that. And I'm looking at it and it's moving and I'm watching it like move across the room and this little like tick, 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 tick came out of the plant. And I'm like, what the hell's that? And I was like, okay, that's a protein in my eye. So I have a maybe like that's a floater in my eye, right? Because that's the
Mhm.
other thing you
Mhm.
think if you see something weird wiggling, like okay, something's so I am like totally rubbing my eyes and I'm like blinking a million times
Mhm.
and I still see it. And I'm just like, there it is. And so I'm like, well, clearly I don't, you know, I don't know what this is, but this is not something this what I just don't believe it, right? But
Mhm.
then it moves across the room and it goes to the girl she's in her she's in her total meditative state. Her eyes are totally shut. And it goes across, and it like donks her on the forehead. It like runs into her forehead, right? And her eyes are fully closed, and she goes like this and rubs her forehead. And I go, and like, then I'm like, what was that? Like, what the hell was that? Like, I saw the little thing go, and it just went dunk. It just knocked in her forehead. And then like her eyes are still closed. With her eyes closed, she just like picks up her hand and like rubs her forehead. And I'm like, what is that? So that was a cool, cool day.
What I want to know, you're with all the abilities you have, with all the, with all the extra ability that you have around people and all that, when you went to that soul thing, with the as
Soul
a
Foundation.
the Soul Foundation. Yeah. I want, before we, run out of time, I do want to talk about that for a minute. I want the, if you could explain to our audience what soul is, because you can do it so much better than I can. And what field did you get? I mean, I know you had, you told us a lot about things that happened there, but I just want to get your feel on the whole thing. What your instincts tell you, how it went, or where it's going, what it, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Let's talk about soul. Okay. Enough of psychic school, which is still fun, but anyway.
No, but I want to know where the hell you go to sign up for psychic school. Is that someplace on the internet or what?
No, we should just start a new one or something. I think it's still going. I have to find.
I'll sign up if you're the teacher. I'll sign up.
Okay. Soul Foundation.
Yes.
Soul Foundation is a think tank. It is created by Gary Nolan, who is at the Stanford School of Medicine. Is he a virologist or a microbiologist? I can't.
I think he's a virologist.
I think he's a virologist. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Gary Nolan, introduction. Is it Ratchford and Carlotta Harris? He's a professor, Department of Pathology, Stanford University School of Medicine. Okay. Peter Skafish, also PhD. He's from Berkeley. And so here's the thing. Think tank of a lot of academics and a lot of like 3D world professors and professionals. Think about that. Mm-hmm. And so they have gathered together this foundation, this think tank in the fields of medicine, the humanities, military, NASA, astronomy, all these different sciences and humanities to talk about the UAP issue. And here's the wild thing. Here's just what I need to say that's just gonna blow everybody's mind, and the reason why I needed time to just process and think. You have people from the church, like theology, people from heavy hitters. Avi Loeb is there, okay? Harvard University, like the top of the top. Chris Mellon is there. You have from SRI, Hal Puthoff and Russell Targ are there, like the room of the room. Leslie Kane is there. And they're all having this 2-day think tank symposium. And the question is not, do they exist or is it real? The question is, how are we going to tell the people? And the question is, because we know that the technology and the beings and the craft have been under Lockheed and classified governments, we want a piece of, we need to declassify this material, because we need people like us, the professionals, to study and understand it because it's been hidden for too long and we're running out of time.
Mhm.
And so all of that sounds gnarly when you're hearing it. And
From
so,
those guys.
yeah. So for me, I've always kept my like my day job, my corporate world day job. I've kept it separate, like they say it's your hobby. Yes. And I'm,
Yeah.
Right. Right.
I'm fun, crazy UFO lady at work, and that's totally fine. I like that because I'm always like, guys, tell me how a propulsion system works. Because I see the craft, I see the things out there all the time. And I'm just like, okay, I did this and this and this. And then I'll draw it on a whiteboard for some of our top engineers and be like, now tell me how it worked. And they're just like, it doesn't do
Right.
that. And I was like, oh, no, I saw the thing that just did that. And so they're just like, what? Right. So good conversation. But
Yeah, and the not experiencers were there. It's just amazing to me that you actually got to go,
so what got me there was
Mhm.
that this got announced now this Soul Foundation's brand new, and this is their inaugural symposium. So it was the first one. They released the information over the summer. I saw the announcement for it, and I looked at the speakers that they had on the list so far, which it wasn't too many, but it said, humanities and this and this, and someone like Dana Walsh Pasolka is there, and like all these, all these people. And I was like, that's wonderful. Like, why isn't Whitley there? If you're doing a think tank where you're trying to understand all aspects of this UAP phenomenon, why is there no experiencer representation?
Mhm.
And I guess that's what Peter Skafish does, although he's a little bit more philosophy. So I don't know too much about that. But for me, not knowing anything, I was just like, I want a name. I want Whitley there. I want Deb there. I want Terry Lovelace there. Like, I can think of great people that should be there. And so almost kind of defiantly and snarkily kind of thing,
Snarkily.
snarkily, I sent them an email, and I just said, like, I think I said 2 sentences. I said, I am an experiencer. I would like to attend. And that was it. It said that what was making me angry was that it said that they were going to record the whole session, but that only snippets would be put out to the public. And I was like, I want to be in that room,
Yeah.
Now I know it's basically because of people's government classifications or something. Maybe that's why, like, some people, maybe they don't want that out. But they said that, and I was just like, And then they said that it was only going to be, it was invite only, and there's only going to be a handful of like I don't know, whatever, like extra tickets or something like that. And so I was like, I don't know, I'm gonna tell them I want to go, and that's what I did. And then like 4 weeks before the thing, I got an invite. I was like, oh my god.
No, she was so spazzed out when she told us, she goes, guys, I get to go. I got an invite. I'm going to Soul.
Oh my gosh. And then
I'm like, oh, good.
I went to the Strange Realities
Mhm.
conference in Nashville in the beginning of November. And so, it's hard. I got 3 kids and my husband, and we live on this big property. And so, like, to leave is a big deal, right? And so I
Oh,
had
yeah.
already had this Nashville thing all locked down, but then I get the Stanford thing, and I was like, oh, honey, like, you don't say no. You don't say no. Like
No.
it's just gonna. So yeah. So now I'm homebound for a very long time.
Oh, well, thank God for the internet. But I'm so glad you got a chance to go. The things that you told us were just amazing.
So here's the one big takeaway, because those are just to give you the big stuff. Hal Puthoff gets up there and he says this. He says in 2004, he gets a phone call and he gets asked to, like, come to DC for 2 days for a meeting. And of course he's, asked, like, well, what's it about? Can't tell you. come to DC. And he's like, well, I'm really busy. Like, what's this thing? And whoever the call person says, I can't tell you, but you will regret it for the rest of your life if you don't come. And so he's like, okay, he goes, right? Of course, if your friend tells you, I can't tell you, but you will regret it for your, you're going to
you're going.
You're going to get your butt on that plane and go. Okay. So he gets there, and it's essentially this bunch of people, and they're going to break up into small groups, and you have a scorecard of +9, -9, or -9 all the way to +9. And they have all the categories of economy, government, military, world affairs, education. I don't know, like trickling down. So think like the biggest stuff to like, what will the neighbors think, or how's it going to affect the family, or like how does it affect the Southern Baptist Church? I don't know. It's essentially, are we ready for disclosure? And they took every pocket and they got this score. So Hal says that when he got there and he finds out this is what this is, he's very excited because he's like, oh, this is great. I get to be part of disclosure, right? And then to his shock, when it's done, his team has a negative score. 2004, think about this. And then he finds out just about everybody, all the teams, just about every team has a negative score. And that's why we didn't get disclosure in 2004.
Wow. Huh.
So leading from that, you start getting, and there have been more of these, like these meetings have continued every so on since. But if you look at that and now look at the timeline, it's been like a slow leak, because that's what they've decided. That's what it has to be. It has to be a very like slow personal thing. So look at our media, look at the movies that have been coming out.
And look at even the stuff that there are actually are on the mainstream, news outlets and stuff now, mainstream media news outlets and things that are being broadcast and they're reporting on with serious faces,
Yeah.
I mean, it's like it has to be a trickle. You can't just toss this on top of the general public out of the blue. You and I and folks like us have known about this our whole lives, and for years anyway, and years we've lived with it. But general population, they're just waking up to the fact that, what I can't remember the term that you used about what a shock it would be to people to suddenly realize that we're not here alone, even though, it's been right in their face, but they haven't really paid much attention to it, so
ontological shock.
That's it. That's the word. Yeah.
Ontological shock. It's the funny thing is, so Jeff Kripal, he's a professor at Rice University. He's a history of religion, studies history of religions. And he wrote a book called The Flip. And The Flip is all about that. Like when you like when you're very scientific or analytically minded and all of a sudden you realize like, holy crap, it's real. Like there's that flip, like and like your body has to understand like, wait, what? And some people are better at it than others, right? Depending on your circumstance or whatever. But here's the one that really, here's where I'm at, because my latest contacts, so I've had different teachers that present themselves, and it's always the same. Things will start slowing down. Like no readings, work will quiet down. Everything starts quiet down, and I'm like, oh shit, here it comes, and I start getting nervous. And then I toggle between anxiety and I'm anxious because I know someone is coming, but I have to neutralize my energy so that when it does come, I'm able to talk to it. So you go from like, oh, it's like this erratic thing of like, you have to control your emotion and you have to, but it's coming. And so then the teacher will present itself. And when I say teacher, it's because it's more than just it's usually more than a human, right? It's not necessarily going to be a spirit. It's going to be someone, an advanced spirit, or an evolved spirit, I'll say. And so this last 2 years has been going through that process, and the teacher has been a saint and an angel, and in the background, a woman who I believe to be the Virgin Mary. Now, that's not to say I'm so religious. Yeah, brought up Catholic, but like lapsed Catholic for a lot of time, and so at the same time, when the teacher presents itself, I have to humbly be the student, because you don't say no to the teaching. So it's like, okay, well, here you are. And it has to be for a reason, right? Shamanism came into my life. The shaman teacher came into my life the exact same day that the ET that I found out that what I was experiencing was ET contact. I needed shamanism to process the ET stuff. And right now, in terms of disclosure, I need to understand religion to process disclosure. And this is what I told Whitley at Soul. He was there as a guest, not a speaker, but I was like, you should be a speaker. And he said, I know.
He should be.
What I told him, we had lunch, and I said, do you remember? I said, you remember when Annie said, when Whitley's late wife, Annie, after reading all the communion letters, right? Whitley Strieber writes communion, and there's millions of letters or thousands of letters come in or whatever. After reading just about all of them, Annie turned to Whitley and said, Whitley, this has something to do with what we call the dead. Because so many experiencers saw the spirits of their dead relatives with the ETs. Now, what I told Whitley, at Soul, I said, Whitley, I'm going to 2.0 that. I said, Whitley, what's happening now has something to do with what we call religion. And it's big. And religion is a huge part of that. And then Deb, do you remember what happened when I said that on our little call? You found that Bob Lazar video.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm saying this to Deb, and then Deb sends me right away this old video of Bob Lazar, who says, oh, and by the way, why is there at the heaviest level of classification, like, what do you say, like documents like this thick, like what, 2-3 inch worth of documents from the Vatican, all in relation to religion and the UAP phenomenon?
Yeah, and he said something about the extraterrestrials looked at us, or the certain ones of them looked at humans as soul containers. That's all they looked at us, as.
And a lot of Linda Moulton Howe's work is about that too, the soul container.
It's going to get crazy. And then I'm glad I'm alive at this point in time in order to witness this, because it's definitely going to get weird. But I'm here for it. I'm ready. I mean, I feel like I'm here. That's why I'm here. And I know, a lot of us feel that we have something to do. And I know you feel that. So.
Well, I don't want it to be, if we leave it to the people that aren't experiencers and the people that don't really know, it's going to turn into military fear porn. Let's just shoot it and then ask questions later. Right. And we cannot, like, that is so 1.0 of humanity, right? We're trying to get to this next level where we understand things. If you understand it, it takes the fear out of it a little more, at least you know what you're dealing with. That's what I think Soul Foundation's trying to do. That's what you're trying to do, Deb. That's what I'm trying to do. Like,
that's Greg, we're doing it with
too.
We're trying to do that with this podcast. Yeah, because it's all connected, right? Greg, I mean, I really feel that strongly, that all of it, everything is all, it's just this intertwined web, this network of connection. And
Just see it like it's all on the other side of that veil, on
Now,
the other
see,
side of that curtain.
I'm gonna circle back to soul container,
Okay.
because I mean, you say that, and I think if it, I mean, do you think it's that? And this may be a rudimentary question, but is it? Do you think they're just waiting for the souls to age to the time of our passing? I mean, why contain the souls in these meat bags to collect them at a certain time when they could bypass the entire meat bag and just take us where we're supposed to go? You see what I'm saying?
I think we have to have these meat sacks that we're driving around, and in order to have the experiences that we have in this plane of existence, and to get where we need to be, from an energetic or an elevated level, you know what I mean? But
Right.
I didn't quite get his comment with that, I understood the comment, but I didn't quite understand the full meaning of what that would be. Do you have more? You're so much smarter than me. So you have more. What's your take on that?
Okay, so there's the concept. So, Greg, I think you're seeing it as a question of like, is the meat suit just to ripen the soul and get it a little better? Okay,
Right.
so
Right.
that's one philosophy. I think so. I've been this is going to sound funny. I've been spending a lot of time in purgatory. Purgatory to me is the middle world in shamanic practice. And in shamanic practice and shamanic theory, it is this. It takes energy to move your soul out of your body and into the next plane. It takes a certain level of energetic force. Okay. So the practice of shamanism is essentially navigating those worlds so that when it's time for you to die, you know where to go, right?
Right.
It kind of
Yeah.
simplistically said. But what that the whole point of that's why we pray. That's why people meditate. That's why there's all this kind of like intention, prayer, whatever you want to call it, ritual when our loved one dies. We pray for their soul, or we help them to do this, or we think about them, or we give them a celebration of life, right? Like all of that energy is what helps them cross. Okay. So that has also, why has that knowledge been taken from us that is so vital? That is vital knowledge to know. Instead, religion has taught us, be good, do this, do this, do this. It's just been a series of do this.
Do what this book says, and if you don't, then you're going to go to hell.
And I'm not necessarily telling you why. Just do it because I say so. Right.
Like
and
my
so
mom.
what has happened
because I say so.
Right. So what has happened is a lot of people have turned from that. But what has happened to all those souls? They're stuck. And if I was an entity that wanted those souls stuck in a place where I could easily get them, I would create that narrative in the world. Now, that's why I don't necessarily think it's one religion, right? I just think that if you look at the tenets of all religions, they have certain rules. Don't be a jerk, respect everybody, be kind, and take care of your dead, and understand death, and be integrated into your life like you would anything else, right? And that's, we've lost that. And so that's where I'm at right now. I'm hanging out on that other side because I want to know what's going on over there, and I want to see who's there.
Mhm.
Let's see, my whole premise, my whole thought process and beliefs are that I don't believe, I'm not a heaven and hell guy.
Mhm.
Okay. I believe in a greater power. I believe that there is a creator. I believe in Mother Earth. I believe in taking care of her. But I also believe that our lifespan is it's a continuation of school.
Mhm.
So your job is that you need to learn these lessons, these particular rhymes and reasons, and know what the difference is and why before you can pass to the next level of existence.
Okay, but wait a
And
minute. Hold on. Wait, pause right there.
uh-huh.
Is your job then, Greg, if you are that infinite in soul, is your job to learn or is your job to remember?
I think it would have to be twofold to be able to cross to the next level. I mean,
Right.
you've got to remember and you've got to learn. If you don't, and I think if you don't learn what you're supposed to and you don't remember what you're supposed to,
Right.
then you're doing it again.
Or
That's right.
if you don't remember what you're capable of,
Right.
Right.
because I always say, human beings are magnificent, energetic beings capable of so much more than they remember that they are
Mhm.
capable of. And that I feel that part of this whole bigger thing that's coming is a remembering of who we are and what we are capable of.
Yep.
And because some people don't, something doesn't want us to remember. I believe that God, like Jesus and Buddha and all those, came here and said, "You're like me. You can do this. You can, remember, know this." You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I've read that in the Bible
Yeah.
when Jesus has said as much, and so I feel like that something else out there doesn't want us to remember who we really are, because apparently we have something they want, which may be our
So, so,
energy or
so
our soul or something. I don't know. I'm speculating.
on, no, but that makes me wonder too, is because to me, the Bible is a handwritten copy by man, by us.
It's been
It's
interpreted a
not
million
that
times.
that is not the actual word. But what if, I mean, I believe in good and evil. What if the higher power is on that level that's trying to bring us to them?
Back to them.
But
I don't
and then theoretically,
Mhm.
that is in Catholicism, that is God. Okay.
Mm.
But also in Catholicism, whatever beings that are trying to hold us back would be considered the devil.
well, okay. Okay, wait. Let's break it down. I kind of don't believe in good and evil. From my experience, this is just my experience. And all the different kinds of beings that I've encountered in my work and just show up at my door. Okay.
Yeah.
Um, you know, what I've realized is that all that is just an expansion of nature. And these beings, from what we consider demonic to what we consider angelic, or whatever, however your terminology you want to put it, really, they are all just beings with their own lives and agendas. So everything has its own agenda. So if I am trekking along in Africa by myself and a lion comes that's hungry and the lion eats me, is that lion evil? No, it's a hungry lion. And I'm the fool because I'm walking around in Africa by myself. Um, and so that's what it is. I think that's what's happening. It's not that there's this grand nefarious ET race that's trying to do something. And P.S. There's a lot of whatever we want to call ET. There's a lot of different intelligences out there, and all
Exactly.
of them have an agenda. And there's some of them whose agendas make it so that they're a little kinder toward us in their trekking along, and there's others that don't give a crap about us, and they're going to mow us down if we're in the way. That's just how it is.
Or they're just indifferent to us. We just
Right.
you know, they
Right.
they don't, you know, they know we're there, okay, but they just, you know, like us and the ants. We know they're there. They don't know that they don't know we're there until we step on their anthill, you know.
Right.
But yeah, it's kind of like that.
Or what? Did you ever see? Did you ever watch Fraggle Rock? Jim Henson's Fraggle Rock. Did you ever see it? You didn't watch it?
Yeah.
Okay, you did. Okay. Do you remember the Fraggles and the Doozers?
Yes.
Okay. So the Doozers live in the caves where the Fraggles live, and the Doozers make little intricate, beautiful crystalline structures out of beets. They use the beets, and Fraggles love beets. So the Fraggles are talking, and they're walking along, and the Doozers are making their beautiful little crystal plate, and the Fraggles walk around, and there's like,
and just eating
they just like take it and they eat it because they don't care, because it's just beets. How does the Doozer feel? Does the Doozer feel that the Fraggle is evil? And what does that mean about us that we love the Fraggles? Do you know what I mean? It's just
it's so your little, my mind goes
we have to get out of this, because that is very egotistical thinking, to say you don't like me, so you're evil. You know what I mean? No, it's just, if you understand it, you know, oh, I need to not put myself in that position. And that's what I'm talking about with the soul. So you need to not put your soul in that position. And that's what a lot of people are doing right now. And I think there's, I don't know, either twofold. Like I said, maybe we are just kind of lazy and compliant as a society. And in the same way, I came back from Seoul and I told certain people, and they were like, well, if it was important enough, it would be on the news. Right. And I'm like, but actually all the information's out there. And how many people don't know this? And truly, all of the information is out there. This is why I can go to Stanford and it's an unclassified meeting and everybody's talking about non-human intelligence and what are we going to do with the craft and the bodies, and David Grush is there and all these people, you know what I mean?
Right.
Wild.
And yeah, I've seen memes that are like, oh, this happened in the news and this happened in the news. And oh, by the way, the government says aliens exist and UFOs are real. And then they move on and it's like, but nobody cares. You know, it's out there now and nobody's paying attention.
And that is by design. So 2004, 20 years later, look at where we are. And now we're just going to keep getting more and more and more until they're just going to be around.
Yeah. Well, if we have kept you here for an hour and a half, and I'm sure you have your birthday party coming up, so you're probably getting tired. I don't want to wear you out. I want you to be fresh for your party. So I'm so happy that you came and hung out with us and we had these conversations. I really am.
Thank you for having me, you guys. Sure. I love talking about this stuff. Yeah. Thanks, guys.
Awesome. Thank you. Yeah. And remember, guys, we are going to wrap it up right now, but thank you for listening to Midwest Paratalk Radio. Remember Midwest Paratalk Radio on YouTube, Podomatic, and all of the podcast platforms. And we will see you next Thursday night, 9 Eastern, 8 Central. And I'm Deb, and that's Greg.
See, you did it. He does that. He'll come on and do it. Yeah.
I don't know.
Wait, I'm going to be Greg then.
Okay.
There you go.
Deb can be Lucinda. You can be Lucy. And
I love that
name swap.
Too. Yeah, there you go. That works.
There we go. All right, you guys. Thanks for hanging out with us tonight. We'll see you next week.
Good night.
Good night.